How have black dolls caused a national controversy and now racial bias training is implemented? Why not just punish the individual that put up the display? This is Undeniable with Sarah Kelly. Here I highlight news the Morning Watch has reported, things that weren't reported, and further information on indoctrination and leftist bias at Michigan State University. So this week we will cover MSU's obsession with race and self-segregation. I'll point just the ludicrous, hypocritical, and just outlandish stories that have been occurring on campus and that show this odd obsession with race over individualism. And then I'll just finish with, how have these proposed solutions by MSU, or how have they dealt with these cases? How are the way they're doing is that is actually antithetical and in the opposite direction of where they actually want to go in improving race relations and race tensions. And frankly, they are promoting, not individualism, but self-segregation and just this obsession with race and further segmentation of the population based on race. It's very sick. So here are just first few some cases, of racial bias that have been reported, alleged racial bias on campus that have been reported, just to give you an idea of where they might be coming from or where they've been freaking out about. So one, in 2018, last 2 years ago, there was a shoelace found in the dorm. Shoes come packaged, and the laces are tied up nice and neatly, and then there's a little loop on the end of a packaged string. And it was reportedly dropped in a hallway, and it fell outside of an African American's dorm. And then the police were called because, bam, it had to be racial bias. It was shoelaces that looked like a noose. It was an African American's dorm. And you put all those together, and there's only one probable solution or cause, a racial bias. So actually the police were called. So we had police come onto the scene, which is just, we've gotten to the point where police are coming to find and investigate shoelaces and whether they might be offensive or not. That's a whole other problem. They probably have some more serious stuff to do. I think this could have been figured out by about 2 people. And so they were found in the dorm. People freaked out. Everyone was like, oh my gosh. And then obviously did come to figure out that, yeah, they were dropped shoelaces, blah, blah, blah. And so, the college put out, emails saying, hey, this happened. Yes, it was, just happenstance, but still. And they were very clear, still, there's a very big problem. Actually, the student government turned around. I remember sitting there, and they brought it up, and I was like, all right, well, maybe they're going to say, well, it's good to see that, we're not so, as much as the narrative seems to be that everyone's a racist, that it's good, this isn't true, maybe. But no, it was, even though this is, found to be, happenstance or mistake, there's still a massive problem, and we've got so much work to do because blah, 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 blah. So yeah, that was that one. Another very similar one was, this one might have more tension around it, but toilet paper nooses were found last fall. Last fall in a dormitory again. And so they were allegedly, so around Halloween, allegedly these were nooses targeted towards African Americans. And so obviously the conclusion there is racial bias. They did some investigation, and it was found, to be a Halloween prank, not targeted. And obviously we don't know all the details, but it seemed like either a very weak case of racial bias or just, was the toilet paper meant to look like nooses? Was it just, roll up funny, what have you? And so college actually put out an email, and they got in trouble for it. They said, yeah, this is a Halloween prank. The people did not mean to do this, to target in a racist way. So just, they put that out there, and obviously, even MSU's own president couldn't, he had to bow down to the leftist urges on campus and say, well, actually, no matter how we feel, whether it's intended or not. And so that was a whole nother thing. There was also last year a Morning Watch covered this. Go check it out on our on the website. There was and this one actually does have, I think, a pretty probable case. Is MSU professor, crazy left wing, wanted to put out a survey to measure offensiveness and aggressiveness, which he did get, granted, of different prompts and things that he's seen and researchers have seen in social media. So this thing included, it wasn't just slightly racist. I don't know how to measure this, but like slightly racist to extreme. It was just very extreme. No one, well, conservatives especially, in left, people on left, no one would want this. But it went out. It was very, very horrible backlash. Just horrible stuff, and included terms that you would not say, you would not use. And so he did get he did realize how offensive and aggressive people were towards it, but he had to take it down, all this stuff. So that was another thing that they would be pointing to. And then also just last week or week and a half ago, a display was put up in the Wharton Center gift shop, selling, advertising, famous African American leaders and also our famous, I guess, white leaders, just call them American leaders. And so the way they had it was it looked like kind of like a tree, a tree stand, and they had these, black and white doll figurines. They had string from attached next to the tree, It seemed like, how do you hang these up? I think it might have been just the backs, not the actual neck, but hanging them up. And so it looked like, okay, you gotta hang up dolls, like, there you go. But the problem was it looked like a tree, it looked kind of like nooses, lynching, stuff like that. So obviously there was a huge backlash over that. It's gone national. I saw like California Sun was reporting on it. So obviously it's gone far and wide. So it's very odd, because for that it's like, okay, who put up the display? If you really don't like this and it's really that bad and they had this horrible intention, fire them. But obviously the left, this comes from whether we punish people or we just give them retribution and heal them. But if they do want to solve this in a more effective way, and if they see that this is a huge problem, you've got to find that person, obviously, or a group of people that did this. Because their solution, how MSU is solving several of these problems. MSU's left-wing president is making a chief diversity officer and vice president of diversity admin positions, which will no doubt be a more waste. He's also making a diversity, equity, and inclusion campus-wide committee. And this committee, which the Morning Watch covered in our article titled "Toilet Paper Nooses, Bias Incidents, Create Diversity Crusade" by MSU's president and student government. So read that article. It's got several key points in it. But anyhow, this committee will pinpoint existing gaps and will examine, among other areas, the composition and success for our faculty, staff, and student body. These areas will be evaluated broadly with a focus on social identities, including age, color, disability status, ethnicity, gender identity, national origin, and race. Sounds like identity politics. Doesn't say anything about their, These areas will be evaluated broadly with a focus on character, actions, past records, ambitions, nothing like that. But we're just going to talk about, what they look like. So besides those solutions that I'm just trying to propose, there's going to be racial bias training for all, not just employees at the Wharton Center where that display was set up, but volunteers. So you volunteer, you want to get some community service in, you're a nice person, you want to do a good thing. And so now you got to sit through racial bias training for something that, I imagine this display wasn't set up by more than 2 people. I mean, how long does it take? If there was the whole organization, okay, punish all of them. But, to make everyone do bias training. The student government, radical left-wing student government, Associated Students at Michigan State University, of course, and they've been pushing this for a while. And this probably won't actually come to fruition. But they pushed a bill, they passed it, wanting to create mandated training for all faculty, staff, and students around diversity and race, and etc. There's a huge push for a multicultural center on campus again. There already is one, second floor of the Union. looks nice to me. Like I don't know what they're asking for, but they want their own freestanding building. I'm sure this place is gonna be like the ultimate safe space. They're not gonna be, they're not gonna get, critiqued. It's gonna be, perfectly friendly. There's gonna be no hate there. It's all gonna be flowers, rainbows, and daisies, maybe quite literally. You know, so they want that. And so all these proposals have been spearheaded mostly by, the left on campus, whether it's administration, faculty, or students. And I would say these people aren't, when you look at them or see what they're saying, they're not like, oh, rugged individuals, pure American spirit, no matter what you look like, no matter where you come from, you can build a career. You can, it's not going to be easy, and you might have setbacks, and you might not succeed. But there's still that opportunity of no matter what you look like, where you came from, that you can succeed, that, good old rugged individualism that we have promoted for, centuries, whether it's on the battlefield, well, some terms of the battlefield, or in sports, or, how we raise children. But no, these people are obviously, very focused on race. They're obsessed with race. And very left-leaning crew that are doing this. And they're, so the specific aim is to, I think they want to help, racial tensions. Obviously, it's a good intention, but actually what this is going to do is make it worse. It's going to not promote individualism. It's going to force indoctrination, and it's going to be more of a waste of money, time, effort, because this crusade by President Stanley and MSU it's contrary. It's not going to be a solution to the problem. It's going to make the problem worse. So the current situation at Michigan State University is the promotion of self-segregation. The 20th century civil rights leaders, America, the majority of Republicans over Democrats since the 1880s on civil rights legislation, we wanted to push away from segregation. We want to go away from the mandated grouping of races. Obviously, voluntary grouping, voluntary association, sure. You want to do that? Fine. But when it's starting to promote as an ideology, an idea that's better than individualism, or just people, no matter what they look like, just associating, or especially forced or indoctrinating this type of ideology, that's not good. Yet today on campus, we have groups that are solely based on innate identity, and they have their own rooms on campus, their own funding sources, and quite seemingly very exclusive events. For example, there's the CORES and COPS groups. CORES, Council of Racial and Ethnic Students, and then COPS, Council of Progressive Students, which many of those groups, then those association, the two groups, which are created by the student government, they have their own events where it's all about, a certain race or identity. They all come together, and it's a very self-segregating type thing. Think about it. It's just mainly that group of people on a main, ideology of just groupthink and identity politics coming together in a very, secluding manner. And it does not embody what I would think is, what an actual university is. University, the American university, the way it was set up was, they've gone very far, but they were set up essentially, no matter what you look like, no matter, where you came from, as long as you, could get in based on, merit and credit, and had the ability to succeed and the ambition to succeed, and you had first and foremost a conviction to, learn, expand, and to know, especially most universities in America were founded with a religious basis. We've gone so far from that. Now it's very, self-segregated, very left-wing, groupthink, and these groups on campus are not, they aren't, I don't think they're embodying, Martin Luther, Lincoln, all these civil rights people. So there's quite seemingly on campus a group for every race, except whites, obviously, which is fine, and no doubt there's nothing wrong with promoting the actions or recognizing the, oppression of past groups, whether black, slaves, white indentured servants, European gulag victims, or even Muslims today in China. But if the vision of society is where you were judged on, But shouldn't the vision of a society be judged, where you're judged on character and action, not innate qualities or properties or the actions of your forefathers? Is not the solution, to that, the solution to being judged by, what your forefathers did or how you were past oppressed or your ancestors or your innate qualities. The solution to that is individualism, or what some have called colorblindness. Now, obviously, not saying that you can't obviously recognize that someone's oh, they're probably European descent, they're Asian or they're black, but just fine. God made one human race, but He made us different. There are obviously differences from where we come from, or ancestors come from, but just the description and highlighting so much of where you come from, the level of melanin in your skin, and the past oppression or past oppressorship of your race, that should not be judged for your life outcome, your character, or actions. That's totally separate. Whatever was adopted from Russia, whatever my great grandparents did, maybe whether they fought for the Russians in the Second World War with the Allies, or whether they fought with the Axis, or whether what they did in the Cold War against America and against the West and promoting socialism, that has no reflection on my current character or actions. I'm not held down. If my parents were horrible, socialists that worked in gulag camps and were bringing in people and forcing them there and making them work, I have I'm free from that sin. I'm not born into that. I'm born into sin, but not born into that of which they did. And so this view needs to be definitely more held on campus, because it's not. These separate groups and the events they do, they're very poignant to, oh, you're this person, you look like this is your melanin level, let me assign these statuses to you, let me assign, oh, your ancestors did this. It's very backwards. And yeah, at MSU, this is what we do: self-segregation of racial groups, promotion of racial bias training or diversity training that will not seek to take away these promotions of and tools of self-segregation, but will seek to label, divide, and produce guiltiness or victimhood virtue statuses, and the literal creation of administrators who are meant solely to label and judge on race and not action or character. You're right there. I'm talking about those chief diversity and vice president diversity, whatever President Stanley's creating. Those people aren't there to be say, hey, in America we value, no matter where you come from, no matter what you look like, you have the ability to succeed. As long as you think you have the ability to succeed and you have, you're able to have the proper tools and you can have the ambition and you have the drive. But instead, they're going to say, hey, wow, we've got this many, African-American faculty, or this many students are not doing well and based on their race in this class, blah, blah, blah. They're going to be looking at race and identity, innate qualities, which is not the solution to obvious racial problems that might be on campus. If there are all these cases, then, why would you further promote this self-segregation or labeling based on race and judging of qualities based on race? No matter how they are re-envisioned today, Martin Luther King Jr., Reverend Martin Luther King Jr., Frederick Douglass, Ida B. Wells, they would not prefer the route MSU is taking. And I'll say that one more time. Lincoln, Reverend Martin Luther King Jr., Frederick Douglass, and Ida B. Wells would not prefer the route MSU is taking today. They would not. They fought their lives for the promotion not based on race or what your ancestors did, but for, undeniable truths of mankind, no matter what you look like or no matter who you came from. It was not meant to judge on race, and it was not meant to assign character or what you would do based on your race. They were completely against that. And that's something that MSU needs to highly consider. It needs to highly look over when they're going about these radical agendas, to racial bias training, what have you. and it's something for them to think about, and something, that we need to, keep an eye out for and watch and be ready to push back. This has been Sergey Kelly with the Morning Watch on Undeniable with Sergey Kelly, episode 15, MSU's obsession with race and self-segregation. Make sure to subscribe to the Morning Watch website. Just go to the website, themorningwatchmsu.com. In the top right or bottom, there's a subscribe button. Enter email. You'll get all our content straight to you. It's a great way. Obviously, stay connected with us on social media, on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Just type in the Morning Watch. Some variation of that should come up, and you'll find us there. And it'll help you stay up to date on the latest leftist bias at Michigan State University. Thank you.